Hello, folks. Welcome to Never on the Back Foot. Tonight, we'll dissect the third test that happened at Gabba. I mean, it was a thrilling encounter. A lot of us were kind of expecting a result, a outcome, something to come out, but unfortunately, rain had to play spoilsport, and eventually turned out to be the winner. On the podcast, joining me today is Sanchit. He is a passionate cricket fan, as you can see, and he's also part of Bharatami, and he does a lot of fun things, guys. So if you haven't already followed him on social media, now might be a really good time to do that. So warm welcome to you, Sanchit. And I think I'll just start off with a very honest question. If I asked you on day 1, 2, or 3 of the test match that this one would end up as a draw, or that India would actually manage to make a match out of it, would you see that coming?
Firstly, Neha, thank you once again for calling me on this show. And what a way to actually begin the podcast. Because honestly, like to answer your question, I think majority, not majority, I think all of us would have taken going 1-1 into the MCG and SCG test match in this series. Because the way that the fixtures were lined up with Australia playing at Gabba, Perth, and the Adelaide ping ball test match where they are practically invincible since the inception. I think all of us would have taken going 1-1 into MCG because I think we are now on the driver's seat because the next two venues are going to be very favorable for us. So what happened at Gabba, I think both the teams after what happened on day 5, they will feel like yeah, I think we both were lucky because Australia, let's not forget, they will try to downplay this fact, but they did have a collapse in the on the final day, which is a problem for them. Their batting has not really been up to the mark except for Travis Head, I think, who's batting on a very different level. We'll talk about him in a while, but yeah, I think both the teams will be very happy going into MCG with 1-1. Australia slightly disappointed because they expected the series to be in their favor by now, but from India's point of view, I think very delighted because we haven't been at our best. Let's face it, in this year, especially in whites. But now I think this is the perfect time for India to actually have the ascendancy in this format. So really excited to see what happens in MCG.
Yeah, I think on any given day we would take that sort of an outcome. Going to Melbourne with that 1-1 score line. And Sanchit, we already have fans of yours in the chat. We have Anshul saying, "Hey, Sanchit, long time mate, good to see you back." And Anshul also goes on to add that Melbourne is going to be favorable for India. And, talking about the conditions and everything. Enters the Scott Boland in the chat. Of course, Anshul had to bring it up. But I mean, we will talk about the changes in a while. But again, Sanchit, just going back to India, the way they were coming into this test match on the back of a very tough defeat, right? At Adelaide. What were you expecting heading into this match? Matlab, lag raha tha ki India will still, given that sort of a fight, we've not had the best possible form. Players are still taking time to get into the groove, but you had a sliver of hope entering into this match.
I think yes, a part of me was optimistic because I felt that the Adelaide game was really not in our hands because Australia, as I said, were practically invincible playing in this venue, especially with the ping ball. And I don't think we hardly played any ping ball test match before this also. And the last time we played a ping ball test match was in Bangalore against Sri Lanka. That it was 2 years ago. So honestly, like if you ask me. I was not really confident at Adelaide, but at going into Gabba, I think I was pretty confident because the record that we have had in Australia, especially playing red ball cricket. The last time we lost a red ball match against Australia in Australia was all the way back in 2018 at Perth. So we have been enjoying quite a good time with red ball in Australia. So going into Gabba, of course, we all can't forget what happened the last time we were there. So it was pretty much confidence building up. But what happened at the toss, I personally was not happy with us actually bowling first. But yeah, I think that's a different topic to talk upon. But yeah, I think we got pretty much saved at the end of the day. But yeah, I think Gabba, it was a missed opportunity if we look about it, if the match happened from all the days point of view, I think but going into MCG, I'm very much happy with the series level.
Yeah, I think the smile of our face is just, refusing to wear off because this was not the outcome that I was expecting or even, thinking we would discuss in the live, honestly. But again, before we get to the toss side of things, let's just have a look at the changes that India enforced, right? We had Harshit Rana and Ravi Ashwin stepping out. We had Akash Deep and Jadeja coming in. So, were you happy with these kind of changes that India was enforcing? Did you feel like, okay, the situation kind of demands it, the conditions also want it? Or did you just feel like, okay, fine, let's just, move on with these changes?
I think Akash Deep was due a test match. I think he's actually shown us why he deserves a go. And I was honestly surprised in the first test match when Harshit Rana was preferred over Akash Deep, especially knowing that Rana did not play any practice game in Australia before the series also. But he did actually have a good time, except that last time he was there. He showed why experience actually matters in Australian conditions. But I had no complaints with Akash Deep making his way. I think he did a pretty good job, especially with the bat. That partnership with Bumrah actually saved quite a lot of blushes for us, and I think all the Indian fans will actually be happy with the fact that that partnership happened. I know that lots of memes and jokes were happening that why are we celebrating, but from the context point of the series, like what it means for the rest of the series, that follow on avoidance was actually pretty much vital from India's point of view. So pretty happy with what Akash Deep actually did. And Jadeja obviously in overseas condition is more like a batting all-rounder than a bowling all-rounder for us, and it has been pretty much evident in the last 4 or 5 years. I think if you look at his batting average, especially in Australian and English conditions, it is about 35 or 40 even for that matter, and has always been the one who steps up for us in this kind of conditions. So pretty much happy with that. Hopefully that he rectifies that bowling issue. I think if he can get us those crucial wickets in the middle over, just like how Lion gets for them, I think it's going to be amazing, especially with now no Ravichandran Ashwin for us in whites. I think Jadeja's role becomes even much more crucial. But pretty much happy with the changes. But hopefully, let's see what are the changes to be made in the next two games also.
Yeah, honestly, I'd actually reserved the Ravi Ashwin chat for a little later in our discussion. But Sanjay, let me just, actually get your thoughts on it right away. I mean, Ashwin announced his retirement. None of us saw it coming again. So again, what were your thoughts? I mean, did you feel the retirement was very premature, sudden? Matlab series ke beech mein ho raha hai. Like, gave us a lot of memories of Dhoni doing it back in 2014. So yeah, what did you make of this one?
I think to be honest, Neha, if you ask me that whether we will see all these senior players playing together once again after the Australia series, I think everyone would have said no, because we expected one or maybe even two retirements after this BGT, because everything is on the line. And with Ashwin, I think I did expect this to happen, but not in the middle of the series. I mean, knowing that he will not be preferred going into the Australia tour and also even the England series, which is going to happen in 2025. The next home series we play is directly in October. So with Ashwin, I kind of expected that announcement to come, but the way it happened, it was pretty surprising. And I think I don't know whether it is right to say at this point of time, but I think a lot is going on behind the scenes with why it happened and what happened. I think maybe it is like we can all speculate because we can't obviously have all the facts on the matter. But maybe he felt unhappy that the management is going with Sundar, and or maybe that he felt that the decision was already made and Sundar was going to partner with Jadeja in the next two test matches, and that is what prompted him to take this decision. Whatever it is, we will not know the truth till it comes out from the management or even Ashwin for that matter. So I think, yeah, I agree with what Anshul said. I think picking Washington Sundar at Perth was like the decisive factor for Ashwin taking that call. I think that was the moment where he felt that I don't think this team management needs me. And I think even he hinted that he wanted to take retirement right after Perth, but Rohit said that wait for me, we'll discuss it, and that is what made the team management to play Ashwin in Adelaide, which was pretty surprising to me because he was not really required to play in Adelaide, especially in those conditions. But I think that was like a farewell kind of a game for him, but it didn't go in our favor. I think everything is going behind the scenes. Hopefully, we'll get the answer soon. But it was pretty surprising what happened, and hopefully, all is well in the background.
Absolutely, because I mean, irrespective of the results, right? You kind of need the team to stick through and just be there for each other. And Ashwin probably wasn't getting a semblance of that. And I hope that in the due course of time, we get some clarity from him as to what led to this very sudden retirement. Series ke beach mein, because there were still two matches. You had the Melbourne and the Sydney one, which have known to kind of favor spinners a little bit. But probably, as Anshul also says, probably Washington Sundar getting that opportunity at
Yeah.
Perth, and probably even going ahead in the series could have prompted that. So yeah, let's probably not speculate a lot on that, and just cherish the kind of career that Ashwin has had. But again, now, Sanchit, coming back to this match, now you brought in the aspect of toss and not being very happy with India's decision. So let's actually get your thoughts on that. Now, India won the toss, opted to bowl first. I mean, sure, you don't agree with it, but then what do you think could have been the mindset? Do you think, the kind of not so great batting performances could have, probably aided that decision? Ki, matlab, kya chal raha tha udhar?
I think to answer your question, I felt that it was India playing a bit safe on that occasion because obviously our batting has not been showing quite a lot of confidence in this format, and also Australia as well. So India thought that maybe with the overcast conditions happening around, maybe we could have our luck with Bumrah firing against a pressurized Australian batting lineup. But I feel that especially going into Australia and especially at Gabba, when you win the toss, you have to bat first because it is a once you get through that new ball phase, it is a wonderful batting wicket, and I think Australia have shown that the way with the way that they batted in the short time that they batted on the first 3 days, because it was a rain affected match, you can't really do too much. So I felt that was a missed opportunity from toss point of view, but India played safely with the toss. I feel, and I hope that that doesn't repeat in Melbourne, because in Melbourne and SCG it is predominantly known as a bat first wicket, and if you win the toss, you have to bat first. You have to get through the new ball. And we all have seen what India has done when they actually show their ascendancy. And I remember a game in 2018 where we went into Melbourne going 1-1, and against an informed Australian bowling lineup, we batted first in Melbourne, and Pujara obviously had that wonderful knock on the Boxing Day Test match, and that actually sealed the series for us. So if we win the toss, I don't want to see, even if the conditions are overcast, I don't want to see us bowling first, because obviously we want to actually take the game into a game into the Australian bowling lineup. And yeah, Scott Boland threat is there. I think Anshul has already mentioned that in the comment section, and he's had a wonderful record against against India. I think he played only 2 matches and he's already shown what he's capable of, and he has had a wonderful record at MCG. I remember that one Test match he played against England here. It took 6 for 7, if I'm not wrong. I think that was a bonker spell. So yeah, he's going to be a threat. People are enjoying that Hazelwood is out of the series, but Bolland is equally a difficult bowler to face. So I want India to bat first if we win the toss in MCG. So what happened at Gabba should not repeat.
Honestly, hoping for the same, because opting to bowl first really seems like not the kind of move you would expect a very bold India to take. But then that was the case. And Australia clearly made the most of it, right? I mean, they had a spectacular first innings. We saw the way Steve Smith was, coming into his own. He scored a century. Travis Head was again doing Travis Head things, piling on India's misery with a brilliant knock. Alex Carey came in later on, played that spectacular cameo, I'd say, because that knock of 70 was honestly a knock of gold. So, what were your takeaways from that batting effort? Let's just isolate India's bowling effort, because that's for later. Just look at Australia's batting, and what were your observations?
I think the biggest worry for India at the moment is not Travis Head's form. I think that is a pretty much evident that he loves batting against India, but the fact that we brought Steve Smith back into form at the worst possible time. I think that is going to be a big worry for us, because even before the start of the series, I think many experts, many pundits, and even all the fans were said that Australia is just relied on someone like a Travis Head. If we get him early, then we can knock Australia off pretty quickly. And that was the case till the first or second test match. The first test match we won, we kept Travis Head quiet, and we won by a record margin, I would say. But we knew that Travis Head factor was always going to be there, but now bringing Steve Smith, someone like a Steve Smith who has been pretty quiet in this format, surprisingly for the last 2 years or so, is quite worrisome. I hope that it was a one-off from India's point of view and we get him quickly in MCG. But going by the record that he has at MCG, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for us, and that is the reason why I want India to bat first if we win the toss, because we can keep that batting lineup quiet, because slowly somewhere I feel that they are getting into form quite bit, and I think they have a change in their batting order also. The opener McSweeney has been dropped, and Sam Costas I think is going to make way, who had a great time out in the tour games and also the Prime Minister 11 game which happened against India. So he's going to be quite confident playing against this bowling lineup. So Australia, we don't want Australia to get confident going into MCG. So it's going to be pretty worrisome that we brought their main player back into form.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we are Indian fans, I think just seeing Steve Smith go about doing his business so effortlessly, as to say, I mean, the way he got dismissed again was reminiscent of the way he has been getting out. But at least the batting part of it, like, he was just brilliant. I mean, next level. Travis said, "I don't want the Indian fans to leave the stream," because again, he was batting beautifully. But let's look at India's bowling effort, because I think besides Bumrah, who actually ended up picking a six for, none of the bowlers really came to the party, Sanchit. So again, concerning signs that we see Bumrah doing most of the heavy lifting and the rest of the bowlers just not being able to put in their best.
Exactly. Yes, I think with Siraj, I would say that he had a good first or second spell in that particular first innings. But after that, obviously, it was just an onslaught by Travis Head and Steve Smith. So Siraj showed glimpses of what he can do, but obviously, with him regarded as the second most experienced bowler in this bowling lineup apart from Bumrah, we expect him to do well. But yeah, I agree that it is just Bumrah doing the carry job for us in this bowling department. It is pretty sad to see because having someone like Jasprit Bumrah in your side in 2024, the kind of record he's had, I think we should be blessed that he's playing for our team, he's playing for our country, and to see his bowling efforts go waste like this because he has no partners basically, it is quite sad to see that. And it's just like that one year when Virat Kohli was scoring like heaps load of runs in 2018 was, if I'm not wrong, where we went to England and lost 4-1, and Kohli was like at the top of the run scoring chart, and rest of the Indian batters were not able to support him in that particular peak period of Virat Kohli. Just like that, I think with Bumrah, I think we could see the similar thing happening. So hopefully the other bowlers around him step up. I expect to see more from Siraj and even Akashdeep for that matter. They did show some glimpses of what they can do with the new ball. And I hope that Bumrah is fit enough to carry us through the rest of the series. But obviously, he can't do everything alone. He can't keep batting. He can't keep bowling. He can't keep fielding. And in this Test match, it was just Bumrah or nothing. He saved us with the bat. He saved us with the ball. And what more he can do? So I hope that Bumrah can give inspiration to the rest of the bowling lineup, and we expect to see that happening. I'm not sure what's the situation with Mohammad Shami. I think we could pretty much rule that out at the moment. Yeah, I guess, yeah. So I think a question was asked to Rohit also about Shami, and he said that we deserve to hear more up from NCA about this particular matter. And as of now, I think, yeah, we could both say that नहीं लग रहा है chances शमी के in this BGT with all the things that is going around. So yeah, I have to agree with what Anshul has to say. I think ugly scenes are happening, and we can't really get honest answers unless we hear it from someone after this series, because it is really sad to see that what is happening with our team. And the next two test matches are very, very crucial, not from just this series point of view, but also for some careers, especially in this particular team.
Okay, I really thought, Sanchit, you were going the WTC lane, matlab larger perspective, but man has gone straight on. He's like, careers are being,
It's honestly, yeah, I
understated
think that's
these
the
days.
case. Not just from the batting point of view, but I think even from bowling point of view, a lot is on the line. As I said, this BGT was known to actually have a lot on the line, and we've already seen one implication. But if it doesn't really go well, we never know what could happen in the next, because the next test match we play is directly in July. So we have 6 or 7 months of gap. So if the result doesn't go in India's favor, I mean, we know what could happen.
Honestly, scary scenes, and I think Sanchit and I would not want to think that far ahead. But I think, as Anshul rightly says, "Kaun karega? Jassi bhai kar lega." I mean, he's
कब तक यार?
single-handedly. The question is kab tak, exactly. And I think India would want to, kind of ponder on the kind of bowling performance they did in that first innings alone. But let's talk about India's first innings with the bat. I mean, again, it was quite disappointing to see not a lot of batters, come to the party. KL Rahul was just doing his thing. I think man clocked in a lot of steps on his watch, to just going to the pavilion, coming back because of all the rain interruptions. But a very gritty knock, right? And late contributions coming in from Jadeja, and we obviously had Akashdeep and Bumrah bailing India out of trouble with that lovely partnership. We avoided the follow-on. So, Sanjay, again, talk to us about your experience of watching that India's first innings and everything that just happened.
Honestly, I would put this on record that I have always been a huge critic of KL Rahul, especially in whites, because I felt that he has had a lot of talent, a lot of potential, but always when the things when things require him the most, he always used to falter. I remember the tour back in 2018 where he was required to do well and he had an average of 19 or 20 in the Australian series. So that was always what made me criticize him a lot, especially in this format. But the way that he's performing in this series, being one of the most experienced player in our batting lineup, and especially knowing when our batting is our weakness in this particular series, the way that he has stepped up in a fairly new role for him, being back as an opener in tough conditions, playing against prime Australian bowling lineup. I mean, he has actually won the trust of all those who actually criticize him, especially me. So it's really, really good to see him really do well. He deserved a century at Gabba. That could possibly has have been his best test century after the one he had in Centurion last year. So gutted that he could not get to the three-figure mark, but really happy that how he's carrying up. But hopefully players around him actually do well. I have lots of expectation from his partner Yashasvi Jaiswal, especially after what he has done in Test cricket so far. The way that he's gotten out in the last few innings, it is pretty disappointing to see. I mean, the way he was set up by Mitchell Stark, being shown as a very impatient batter at the top of the order. We don't really actually see Yashasvi Jaiswal as an impatient batter because the kind of record he has had in Test cricket and also in domestic cricket in this particular format, it actually shows a different picture. So he did show a little bit of glimpses of correcting his technique against Stark in the second innings that we batted. I think we hardly batted for 3 or 4 overs, but he did show some glimpses. So hopefully carries on that form. Once again, I feel that कि ये जो बड़ा gap आ जाता है after this test matches, and we saw that after Perth we had a gap of 10 days, and now after Gabba we have a gap of almost 7 or 8 days. This actually plays a lot of disadvantage factor for us. So hopefully that doesn't come into play for Yashasvi Jaiswal. He did show some glimpses, but he has a wonderful career to look forward to. So I hope to see him score another century in the coming two test matches. But apart from that, another disappointing show from the seniors. Kohli, Rohit, they haven't stepped up. Kohli, after his test 100 in Perth, we expected to see him more of him, but once again he did not live up. But hopefully going into MCG and SCG, we see a different side from Kohli as well as the captain Rohit Sharma from this point of view. Jadeja, once again, as I discussed, he has proved out to be the man who deserve to be trusted from this batting lineup. So but yeah, कब तक lower order के runs से मतलब you will be trusting the lower order to do most of the job. That is the problem with India. From the last 4 or 5 years, the lower order has been carrying us out of such situation. Even in the series that we won last time, you look at the runs. Shardul Thakur, Washington Sundar, these are the players who actually got us those runs in Gabba in other test matches as well. Even Shardul got some runs at the Oval Test match we won in England. So कब तक ऐसे चलेगा? You need your prime batters to step up. So hopefully MCG is the turnaround for Team India going into the World Test Championship point of view, as you rightly said, and the break actually works in our favor from batting point of view. Those who are not doing well, hopefully the break actually serves as a reminder of who they are and what they can potentially do.
Fingers crossed, Sanchit. I think we would obviously, be hoping for this sort of an outcome because obviously a lot of gap like this does kind of, stall the momentum, and I don't know, things might just not go in India's favor. But let's also take this question from Vedant that he asked early on. Now, since Gill and Rohit are not doing well at their respective positions, will it be good if they exchange their position as Rohit can do well at three instead of playing at six, as it makes him look slightly unsettled? So, Sanjay, where do you find yourself? Like Rohit Sharma in the middle order, or do you want him to, don that opener ka role? Or, yeah, just want to see how the series transpires.
I think personally, like when Gill came into the picture in white ball cricket, in red ball cricket, I think I read one article back in 2021 where someone said that Shubman Gill can do what VVS Lakshman did all the way back, all those years back, where he started off as an opener, but then transitioned his way back into the middle order. So somewhere, someone felt that, even I agree that I felt that Shubman Gill could potentially be one of our great players back in the middle order where he doesn't have to really face the new ball quite too much. And it's a shame that India never really tried that route. But now I agree with what Vedan has to say. Despite what Rohit has been going with his confidence in the last few matches or so, he has proved out to be one of our best top order batters in this particular format in the last few years or so. He's been, I think, the top leading run scorer in WTC history for India, and he's had a wonderful time in England. Last time we went there, Australia also he's had quite a lot of good starts in SCG and MCG where he played the last time out. So number three would not be really a bad choice for Rohit Sharma, but once again, फिर वही बात आती है कि India is going to do those panic changes once again, reshuffling the batting order, and so somewhere I think it's a good option, but I don't think India is going to do that because already the team batting order is in turmoil. KL Rahul has to do most of the job at the top of the order, so Shubman Gill, as much as we want him to bat in the middle order, he deserves to be trusted at number three, at least till the rest of the series, to see what he can do. And he has a way of playing the new ball really well. We have seen that the last time he played at the Gabba, and even in the home conditions, I think since the England series happened, he had a great time at number three. I think he averages quite decently. It's just the overseas average he's quite struggling with. So we have to show a little bit of faith in Gill, at least for one test match. And I think as much as we want to see Rohit bat at number three, I don't think that is going to happen. So hopefully in MCG that is going to be a turnaround for Shubman Gill, where he actually made his test debut all the way back in 2020. So good memories for him, and hopefully that is going to be a start of Shubman Gill 2.0.
Honestly, hoping for that sort of a turnaround because when Naman goes on to add that it's about time that, Gill steps up and converts
Yeah.
those starts to big scores. I think all around Twitter, this is the one thing that fans would agree on that there's Shubman Gill, stepping up when India needs him the most. We don't need cameos. We need, those long-term knocks which actually help India. But Sanchit, here I quickly want to ask you, like, I don't know, with Rohit not looking at, I mean, not being looked at as a captaincy option for, say, the next WTC cycle, who is your potential captain going to be? Are you still going to go with Bumrah? I mean, he's, playing across formats. It comes with its own set of challenges. Or do you want to probably try a split captaincy option, left field choice, someone like a Shubman Gill leading the test side, or is it too far fetched?
I think honestly, if we have to give it to a deserving candidate, it has to be Jasprit Bumrah. The way that he has led the Indian side with and also backed by his performance, the way that he performed in at Perth, I think he deserves that role. And I would go with Jasprit Bumrah. And it's okay whether if he is not able to carry it on for more than 2 3 years, or with obviously him also working on his fitness. But at least in this particular format, Jasprit Bumrah deserves to lead this side whenever Rohit decides to call it a day in Test cricket or even decides to step down. Jasprit Bumrah has to be that candidate. Before Bumrah, I had those different names in my mind. I was looking at someone like a Rishabh Pant or someone like a KL Rahul, even for that matter. He is also, I think, captained one Test match in South Africa where we lost in 2021 or 2022. So maybe he can also be an option if India wants to look at that long term kind of role and don't want to pressurize Bumrah too much. But Bumrah, yaar, matlab he has already shown why he deserves to be the next captain. So if it is going to be about the next captain, then it has to be Jasprit Bumrah. Then after that, we'll obviously decide कि क्या होता है.
Yeah, that is true, Sanchit. And also, let's probably take this comment from Anshul and let's clear this one. KF might actually move in the middle order with speculations about Rohit moving back to the top. I think Sanchit, you also might have come across this whole thing that Jaiswal didn't board the bus on time. They left him back, and a lot of people are like, "Ha, Rohit Sharma hi lega openings on time." It's just a meme. But in all fairness, Sanchit, do you still think they will persist with KL Rahul, the opener, with Yashasvi Jaiswal and Rohit in the middle order, or do you reckon some possible change at MCG?
I think if Rohit is to move back into the top of the order, it is going to be KL Rahul who will be moved back into the middle order. And it is very unfortunate for KL Rahul because all the time, if you look at his test career, not just test career, but even his entire international career, he's always been that player to accommodate for the other player. So whenever Rohit is not there, he's asked to open. Whenever Pant is injured, he's asked to keep. Whenever finisher is not there, he's asked to play in the middle order. So similarly in Test cricket, he was a great opener back in 2017. I think he's had a wonderful time. I think he scored 6 or 7 consecutive 50s in a row. But then he was asked to move back into the middle order. Then once again he was asked to move back at the top of the order when Rohit was facing through some fitness issues in England. I think, if I'm not wrong. So with KL Rahul, it has always been that chopping and changes wala thing. So it is very unfortunate if that happens. But I would personally not want to move KL Rahul back into the middle order because already he has shown कि यार वही एक बंदा है who is solid at the top of the order. And in Australia with the Kookaburra ball, it is very important to spend time in the middle and to make that new ball a little bit older, which makes it easier for the rest of the batters. We saw what happened in Perth, the second innings, where KL and Jaiswal had that wonderful partnership, which made it very easy for someone like a Virat Kohli to come in and play his kind of shots where which he loves to do, as compared to coming in at 10 for 2 or 18 for 3 for that matter. So it is difficult for me to actually agree with KL Rahul moving back into the middle order because we need reinforcement at the top of the order. As I said कि यार मतलब top order से ही हम लोग को runs चाहिए, and we don't want to बोलते ना कि why fix something which is not broken. So from Rohit's point of view, I think personally, as much as it is difficult for him to play in the middle order right now, it is very difficult to moving back into the middle order. If India is to do that, it is going to be quite chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, things are already very chaotic, so we don't need to add another problem. And I think Nikhil also goes on to say that KL has actually played the new ball well, so there isn't a concern on that front. Anshul asks us a very honest question: is KL the spare wheel in this
Yeah.
ICT setup? Unfortunately, I think if you have the name, Rahul, you are going to be used as
Yeah.
a very floater, flexible sort of an option. Naman has a very strong point of view. He goes on to add that KL must open till the England tour. No point moving him down for 1 or 2 games since it is highly unlikely Rohit's going to play the next cycle. I mean, it is a fair point. They are looking at the future, and KL Rahul is not on the wrong side of his 30s, so man is probably going to play another cycle of the WTC. Uh, and Naman also goes on to add this that I think this is about the captaincy bit I asked you that please not KL, let the lad bat and get the runs.
Yeah, I
Let's
agree.
not burden him with captaincy. Fair point, Naman. I think it was just us, thinking of possible options that India had. And I think right now Bumrah looks like the possible option we would kind of want to consider. But Sanchit, I think a little earlier in our conversation, you did briefly touch on the fact that the seniors are not really stepping up with the bat, the likes of Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, just not doing what we kind of expect them to do. What has been your assessment? Like, what do you think has been going wrong? Do they not have enough of match practice? They're getting old, so probably the hand-eye coordination is just all over the place. Or is it just that they're past their prime? I mean, as much as we don't want to accept it, that is what is happening. I hope the Indian fans don't leave the stream at this point. But just honest question, like, what have your reflections been of this downfall, so to say? If not downfall, this inconsistency. Let's call it inconsistency.
I think it is very difficult to analyze what is exactly wrong with Rohit and Kohli, because if we talk about their technical flaws, then it would be like कि then why are they performing well in the other formats? Rohit has had a wonderful T20 World Cup campaign, and both of these players had a wonderful ODI World Cup campaign last year. So अगर technical faulty होता, then how could they get these kind of runs in the other format? It is just about lack of match practice, I would say. Maybe slightly inclined towards that point, I would say, especially from Rohit and Kohli's point of view. Because with Kohli, he doesn't have a technical flaw. He really likes to feel the bat on the ball quite often, but sometimes that is like ऐसे बोलते हैं ना कि you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He can give you those wonderful cover drive boundaries, but at the same time, he is also going to nick one back into the hands of second slip or first slip for that matter. So it is important to spend as much time as you can in the middle. And I felt that for someone like Kohli, he will do really well when the ball is not turning and when the ball is not spinning, because his spin game has quite a lot dipped, and we have seen that in the home series in this particular year already. So somewhere I felt that Australia tour could be that revival series for someone like a Virat Kohli, and so far it hasn't been going that well despite him scoring a century. But I will not rule them out as of now, because MCG, it is predominantly known as one of the great batting wickets you could get in Australian home series. And someone like a Virat Kohli or someone like a Rohit Sharma who likes to feel the bat coming on the ball coming onto the bat quite hard, so they will enjoy these conditions more than the others, and this could be possibly the revival time for both of these players, hopefully. So from an optimistic point of view, I would say that Melbourne could be the turning point for Virat and Rohit. and with what Anshul had to say about what happened at Melbourne end. But yeah, hopefully that ignites the spark in Virat Kohli, because he's been, ऐसे बोलते हैं ना, fans बोलते थे कि he's been quite cool and he's quite timid for that matter. So if whatever happened, it was unfortunate, and I think that was completely blown out of proportion by the Australian media, I would personally say. But hopefully this actually ignites a fire in his belly before the MCG Test match, so it could work in our favor.
That is true. And Anshul, also, I want to take this comment of his that this, we have often seen an Australian tour bringing about ends to some very brilliant careers. So, Sanchit, again, quick prediction on this. Do you reckon there are some big announcements post this tour? I mean, we've had one mid tour. Can't steal Ashwin's thunder, but do you see some post this tour, or possibly as the cycle sort of ends as well?
I would not like to make a prediction, because if there is an announcement which happens after this series, then that means that we have already lost the series 2-1 or 3-1. Because I honestly don't see anyone retiring if we win the series, because obviously then we'll be in contention for the World Test Championship final, and also the England tour is going to come up. But if we lose this series, then obviously we don't have anything to look forward to until the next cycle. So then there is a possibility of maybe one or two announcements possibly from this particular series. So yeah, I agree with Anshul that if the series result doesn't go in our favor, we could possibly see one more big announcement after this series. And I don't want to predict who it could be, but I think most of us know about the possible candidates. So I don't want to mention it on the stream.
Says Sanchit with tears, holding back all his tears because we are obviously not ready for that. But Sanchit, we also have a question specifically for you from Naman, who he goes on to add, who would fill these gaps with post transition? I mean, you're looking at Jaiswal and KL to open, Gill at three. There's two meaty spots there in the middle order up for grabs, and after Pant also you have two spots. So, any thoughts you have on the post transition India that you're looking at?
I think it's a very good question by Naman, because somewhere we as Indian fans are really not looking too much into the future, and that is a big worry, because after these big players retire, we wonder कि यार कौन खेलेगा इसके बाद, because already we are worried about the next home season. Who is going to replace Ashwin? Is it going to be Washington Sundar? Is it going to be someone new like a Tanush Kotian, who's been doing well for Mumbai in domestic circuit? So just like that, from batting point of view, it is going to be a very very difficult choice. But we have already seen some names who have played in the England series. I think that was a blessing in disguise for us, if you look at what we have to expect from the rest of the tour. So maybe someone like a Sarfaraz, who hasn't had a good Indian career so far. He had a good start, but after that he just fell short when we lost that New Zealand series. But I would not like to rule him out, to be very honest. I think he'll still do well. So I see Sarfaraz somewhere amongst the Indian batting order, and someone like a Shreyas Iyer, who has actually went missing after his injury and after the contract fiasco that he has had last year. But he has had a good time in whites, to be very honest, especially in home conditions. I think when he debuted against New Zealand in home series 3 years ago, and after carrying that form to the rest of the home series, I think he deserves a shout at number 4, especially if Virat Kohli hangs up his boots in a few years' time, hopefully. So maybe we could see these names, and the other candidates are obviously Dhruv Jurel, who has had a wonderful time in England series and did well in the domestic in the tour game that happened just before the series. So Dhruv Jurel could obviously be seen as that particular candidate. And apart from that, maybe there is a wild shout of Rishabh Pant being promoted in the top 5 or top 4 for that matter. I have read some comments about that, but I'm not sure whether I want to agree with that. Why to mess with Pant's position? Let him play that kind of a role in the middle order, because middle order से ही runs आ रहे, तो उधर से क्यों मतलब ये छोड़ने हैं. But the other two positions are what is going to be the most crucial aspect, because if even Jadeja retires in a few years' time, then who is going to replace him? So somewhere I feel that we have really not used Akshar Patel to his full potential. We have seen him being used in the home season. I'm not sure why he wasn't used in the last few series that we played. But Akshar Patel, not just with the ball, but with the bat, he has shown to be India's most dependable option lower down the order. So I would really be excited to see Akshar Patel being played in that particular role, along with someone like Washington Sundar or even Nitish Kumar Reddy if we are playing away from home. So we have quite a lot of good talents. So the next two series that we play against West Indies and South Africa, if I'm not wrong, in the next cycle are going to be showing us the way forward. So really exciting times, but still, it's quite a while for that particular time.
Definitely, I really see our conversation kind of veer into a lot of long shots and like what's going to be the future like. But again, now I think Nikhil goes on to add that Sai
Sai
Sudarshan looks
Sudarshan,
really
yeah.
good to someone who can be considered. We'll have to see how continues performing in the domestic circuit. Naman says Manav
Yeah,
Sikar has also
definitely.
been
Yes, he's
doing really well, right? So these are options we can consider. And Naman
that's the
again
thing. I think
closes.
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we have lots of good options. So
Yeah,
ऐसे
yeah.
बोलते हैं ना कि India का future is really not looking that bad because we have those names, we have those players who can really potentially take us to the next level during this transition phase. So I would not worry too much about the transition phase from India's point of view. The other teams may face that, even especially Australia. Like Australia will face that issue when the big guns retire. But from India's point of view, I think we could be pretty confident.
Definitely. I mean, we have a lot of options. The fact that we are so confidently able to say names without, having to think twice
Yeah.
shows that Indian cricket is definitely in good hands. It's just a matter of time of how they, as we say, seamlessly just transition and
Yeah.
enter this team, which obviously has a lot of stalwarts, so to say. But Naman throws an interesting googly at us. He goes on to ask us, how about a potential comeback for Jinx, right? His batting in SMAT was pure class, like old times. If he makes good runs in Ranchi, can we expect him to make a comeback? Sanjay, I think again this question is stemming from the fact that Rohit Sharma in that press conference spoke about Pujara and Rahane not entirely being out of the scheme of things. So do you think it would be a step in the right direction if India kind of goes back to this duo, or again are we taking like 5 steps back if we go back? Yeah.
As much as I love Ajinkya Rahane, I really respect what he's done for Indian cricket, especially in this particular format. I think it would be a weird call for us to go back to him, irrespective of whatever happens in this series, irrespective of whether we lose 3-1 from here. It would be really harsh on others who are actually eyeing that particular spot in the middle order. So it is very difficult to see Ajinkya Rahane come back, at least in the test side, even if it is for the World Test Championship final, like how he came back. And he did well in that particular game against Australia, if I'm not wrong. But it is going to be a step back from India's point of view and from planning point of view. So I honestly don't want to see that happening. And I think from Ranji point of view, he has not had a good time so far in Ranji Trophy cricket in the last 1 year or so. So in the second leg in January, maybe if he has a wonderful time, then the conversation could start happening. But I personally would feel that it is harsh on the others. So I want to see a proper transition. So irrespective of whatever happens, I don't want to see Ajinkya Rahane come back. He has had a wonderful legacy in this particular format, especially him and Pujara. But going back to them would really show that we have lack of planning, lack of foresight into the future. So we don't want to see that happening. But in SMAT, as we saw in the last 1 month or so, he's had a wonderful time. So maybe in the white ball cricket, we never know. We could see him come back, but that is a far fetched future also.
Honestly, yeah, because when I was thinking that if we go back to this duo who have been very reliable for us, and it kind of pains me to see Pujara in the comms, but then that's life, right? I mean, India has to move on to give opportunities to the youngsters. I think we're going to probably see that period of transition where India might not win a lot of test matches.
Yeah.
It's going to be very painful sights because we've seen so much of
I
dominance
think
right
for
from.
that, I think for that it is very important for us fans to be patient. I mean, we have already seen that in the New Zealand series. I think many of us were really in shock that how could India lose at home, that too being whitewashed. But somewhere this was coming. I mean, obviously you can't really dominate for like a decade or so without any repercussion. So we have already seen that squad age quite a bit. So us fans, it is important for us fans to really be patient during this time. So in the coming home season, if we see a transition, if we see the big names retiring, then it is important for us fans to be patient during those time. It's okay even if we lose a test match against West Indies, it's okay. But we as fans need to be patient because obviously we can't really expect that kind of domination which we have had for the last 12 years or so to happen instantly. It is going to be a process, but hopefully the process takes us in the right way and we see us dominating this particular format once again.
Yeah, I literally shed a tear when you said West Indies, but okay, Sanchit, you could have said any
कुछ
other
भी हो
team.
सकता है.
That is true. But
I
I
hope it
think
doesn't
again,
happen, but yeah.
Yeah, honestly, because it's really going to be tough. But I think what you rightly said is, as fans, we have to be patient because I think we're seeing the kind of dominance that India has had in Test cricket, right? Right from Dhoni, Virat Kohli, and now to Rohit Sharma, where we've seen a lot of ups and downs. But okay, let's not probably get ahead of ourselves there. But again, I think there were some interesting comments that I did want to take when we were talking about the seniors not stepping up and Virat Kohli. Naman also goes on to add that it has got a lot to do with whether that technique is suitable to this format and conditions. In T20s, you don't have the cordon to catch the edges of the seven stump. Clearly, a very irate Virat fan there. Anshul also says, someone please remove the sweep shot from Virat's repertoire. That might actually help him play spin better. I hope Virat Kohli is watching this stream and could probably listen to some of these as well. But Sanchit, as much as we are kind of fixating on Virat and his technique, the way things have not been working out well for him, let's just talk about Australia's bowling effort too, right? I mean, it was a supreme bowling effort. Mitchell Stark and Pat Cummins, absolutely dismantling that Indian batting lineup with the kind of bowling they did there. So, what were your impressions of Australia's, bowling in that India first innings?
I think if we look back at the last series, the 2020-2021 BGT, which was arguably regarded as one of the greatest Indian wins, where Australia lost was that their pacers were exhausted by the time Gabba happened in the final test match, and that was a big learning for Australian team, especially their pacers. That it is very important to manage their workload in a big tour like this, and this is what they have done in this particular series quite well. Maybe they were blessed by the injury to Josh Hazelwood, which brought Bolland back into the picture in one of the test matches. And now, once again, Bolland is going to come back fresh for the MCG test match. So, they are rotating their pacers quite well. And we have seen that at the end of the Gabba test match this year also, that their pacers were slightly exhausted. So, maybe somewhere we could say that the big long break, which is going to happen before the next test match, is going to work in their favor. But as you rightly said, I think they planned really well from taking into consideration from our batting point of view. Not just Virat, but I think even Rishabh Pant, the way that they negated the Rishabh Pant factor, bowling from over the wicket and bowling close to his off stump, which got him nicking quite a few behind the batter. So that is somewhere which they really worked quite a lot, learning from whatever happened on the previous tours, and that is where somewhere we have to give credit to Pat Cummins and the entire Australian management for how they actually did their homework for almost each and every Indian batter, which made it quite a lot difficult for our batters, especially Jaiswal. They played with their ego. They played with Jaiswal's ego of playing those shots, and obviously we saw what happened in those first overs against Stark. So India has to be really wary about this fact, and we should really not look to play in their hands. And the best way to bat against these Australian bowlers is to just bore them out. I think that is what Pujara did pretty well in the last few tours, and I think Hazelwood mentioned this in one of the documentaries that they played, that Pujara used to bore the hell out of them, and that is what caused their downfall. If we can make their bowling lineup panic, if we can make their bowling lineup feel clueless that nothing is happening off the pitch, then that is the time to actually pounce on them. So it is important for the top order to show patience and respect their bowling attack, especially with what KL Rahul was doing. I hope the rest of the batters also follow the similar technique, especially Virat, who really has a tendency to play those kind of shots. If we could just see a little bit of patience from Kohli and the others in that top order, then I think we could play the series in our hands.
Exactly. You need someone in that top order to kind of, blunt the Aussie bowling attack, kind of see how things transpire. But most of our batters just get so impatient that, yeah, that's clearly not the case, right? That has been a big problem that India has been facing. But Naman also brings in a very valid point. Like, how much are the Aussies actually missing their two bowlers? I mean, Marsh is not doing enough as a fifth pacer, and good wordplay there with Marnus Labuschagne and Neil Wagner, not being used enough. Manas Labuschagne, we saw clips of him, doing his thing with pace bowling. Let's call it pace bowling. But is Australia really missing that fifth pacer sort of thing, or do you think they have enough of the work being done by the likes of Stark, Cummins and Hazelwood, Boland, and all of these folks?
I think definitely they are missing the fifth pacer. And I remember one article back in January this year, which mentioned how Australia is preparing Cameron Green for this particular series and how important Cameron Green could be for their chances in this particular series. And I fully agreed with that. I think if Cameron Green played this particular series, we could have seen a different Australian team in this particular series, and maybe the result would have been different. But Australia definitely are missing that fifth bowler. And in the first Test match, we saw Harnas Labuschagne ball those medium pacers against our batters, and that was their way of saying that this is what we wanted from Cameron Green, but obviously this is not happening. And Marsh obviously is not stepping up as the bowler, so it is difficult for them. But they really don't have any other options in this particular format, if I'm not wrong. So Marsh has to do well in the as a fifth pacer if they have to have any chances in this particular series. But yeah, they are definitely missing someone like a Cameron Green in this particular lineup because he could have been the difference factor for Australia, and it was a blessing in disguise for India that they were missing him, and he could have been a lethal threat, especially at Gabba and Perth.
Yeah, and Naman also goes on to ask, on that note, can we expect, say, the likes of Bo Webster getting his baggy at the G, because I think Australia might have to enforce a few changes. Josh Hazelwood is ruled out. Nathan McSweeney, poor lad, went on to say, "I'm excited to play the Boxing Day Test," but now he's being replaced and all of that. But do you expect this change also to happen, Sachin?
Maybe, but if this happens, then maybe they would have to drop someone like a Mitchell Marsh or maybe which actually damages their batting lineup, which is already a problem for them. So we never know what could happen. But I feel that one obvious change is going to be Scott Boland coming back in for the injured Josh Hazelwood. And at the top of the orders, McSweeney, unfortunately, he found out that international cricket is a little bit different than domestic cricket, but he has a wonderful career up ahead, so that's not a problem. But it's going to be very interesting to see what to expect from Sam Constas, who is going to make way for them at the top of the order. He's had a wonderful time, as you mentioned earlier in this chat, in the tour games that he played, and even the Prime Minister game which happened before the second Test match. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what he can do against the likes of our bowlers once again. And there was one video which I saw on social media about his weakness against the in-swinging ball. I think Mukesh Kumar got him out quite a lot of times making with those in-swinger balls. So if Indian pacers are watching that, we could see someone like a Bumrah or even Akashdeep targeting Sam Constas with those in-swingers quite early in his innings. So it's going to be very interesting. But I'm not sure about Webster coming into this MCG Test match. But if that happens, then they actually shorten their batting lineup, which is a good thing for India.
But again, Sanchit, like you spoke about Nathan McSweeney, right? I mean, the man's really young, and this series is obviously a really difficult one. Kind of make your debut, make a mark for yourself. But the fact that Australia has dropped him and they have decided to go ahead with Usman Khwaja, I mean, man is what, at the wrong side of his 30s. He's 38. Do you think it was a little unfair on McSweeney? They should have probably given him a few more opportunities, and Khwaja himself is not doing well. So, I mean, did you see that was fair?
Yeah, I honestly found it surprising. I thought that if someone is to get the axe in this particular batting lineup, it would have been Khawaja, but he would pretty much be happy that it did not happen. And it is unfortunate on McSweeney, but he had a good first innings in Adelaide, if I'm not wrong, negotiating that new ping ball phase in the twilight period of the game. So it is quite harsh on McSweeney, but I think that the fact that he was found out so easily by Jasprit Bumrah, which made him practically his bunny for the rest of the series. I think that was what prompted Australia to make that change, just to not have Bumrah have that edge right away in this particular test match. So harsh on McSweeney, but he's definitely going to learn. And for Khawaja, it is going to be like the last chance wala platform for him in the next few test matches. So it is going to be very, very important. And I saw this comment from Anshul. Yeah, I was thinking that the marketing team of various news channels or even cricket pages had a missed opportunity with Sydney McSweeney kind of headlines if he was to do well in SCG. So a missed opportunity, yes.
I mean, this was the man's debut series, so little unfair there. But I hope McSweeney, kind of gets more opportunities going ahead, because I mean, it is an aging Australian side. As much as the fans kind of want to deny that, and they are going to have that transition, so they will have to look at potential options. But Sanchit, again, let's get back to Australia's second innings. I mean, it was a masterclass in what a collapse looks like. But did you think, that declaration that they made also was a little premature? Like, what was just happening there? I know rain played a very big role. They kind of wanted a result out of this match. But what did you make of, the way they were just batting, the declaration and everything?
I think somewhere in that particular batting effort, they would say that the wickets did not really play in their mind because they were obviously playing that kind of cricket to just score runs. But somewhere in the back of the mind, that was a genuine Australian batting collapse. Especially the first few wickets till Smith got out. I think that was really a genuine batting collapse. I think they will not admit it, but if those who were watching those particular innings carefully, they know that that was a genuine batting collapse. So India will find a way to be more confident from what happened in that particular second innings. But from the declaration point of view, I think it was pretty expected that Australia would want to make the game out of this particular situation, even though they were not going to win this particular match, but at least to have a little bit of chance, even 1% of chance of winning this match, they would want to take that. And I think we all expected Australia to do that, give India 50 or 60 overs to bat. And they were expecting India to go for it. I think we were showing intention till the rain came. We were showing our intention that we are going to go for it. So somewhere I feel that if the match would have happened, we would have had a wonderful climax to that Gabba Test match. So unfortunately, rain had to play spoil sport. But from declaration point of view, I think Australia did pretty well. I think they did that similarly back in 2001 also with New Zealand, where they gave them a target of 284 in 57 overs, if I'm not wrong, in 2001 at Gabba especially, and New Zealand failed to chase that target by just 10 runs, and the match was obviously called a draw. So Australia loves to take those chances, and they would not want to play this kind of boring games where they just play for draw. So it was pretty expected.
Yeah, and I think India will take a lot of confidence from that sort of a bowling effort, right? I mean, we had the likes of Bumrah, Siraj, and Akashdeep, just coming into their own again, taking those wickets. So, Sachin, again, how would you gauge that bowling performance? What did they do very differently from that first innings onto this one?
I think confidence plays a major factor in this, and as we said that little bit of glimpses were shown in that particular bowling effort from India that we are really doing well with Bumrah. But if one or two bowlers can support Bumrah in that particular role, then we can be even more lethal. So whatever happened in the second innings, I think that was a blessing in disguise for India because going into the next test match, the entire thing about Gabba test match was who is going to have the momentum going into MCG. And with India's point of view, I think they would slightly edge themselves more than Australia at the moment because of what happened in the second innings. So I was pretty happy with what happened from the bowling point of view. I was happy with how Siraj bowled and even Akashdeep. I think confidence played a major role. The way that they batted towards the end of the first innings, that actually got the momentum in their bowling, and they really did well in that particular innings, especially Siraj for that matter. So hopefully they carry on where they left off at MCG, and we would see a better bowling performance overall from India.
Definitely. And let's also take a couple of comments. Naman goes on to ask, can we expect any changes in India's bowling unit? Siraj went off for a while. He's had the most workload for an Indian bowler in the past 2 years across formats. So can we see a PK get a game?
Absolutely.
Naman, yeah, I think Anshul also goes on to say that Bumrah also went down. How about Siraj plays and Bumrah is also rested, so he's fit, for SCG. I mean, now, Sanchit, again, your thoughts on this? Do you probably see a rejig in that bowling attack?
I think as much as we are sweating over Bumrah's fitness, the series is 1-1. We obviously can't rest Bumrah at this point of time. Even though he's 10% fit or even though he's 1% fit, we want to have that 1% advantage. And we can't really rest Jasprit Bumrah. It is unfortunate on his workload, but the situation is that we are entirely dependent on him as of now in this particular series. So we want to see Bumrah play all the test matches in this particular series, especially at MCG with the series 1-1. And Bumrah has had quite a good record at MCG. The last two test matches he played here, he's had a phenomenal time. I think both the times he got a fifer in the first or second innings back in 2018 and also in 2020. So we need Bumrah in an MCG Test match, and with Siraj, I'm not really sure what's the condition about his fitness, but with what I saw personally in the second innings, I would want him to play the the third, the MCG Test match as well, because we want to have that momentum play. I mean, it has been a harsh harsh thing on Siraj so far in this particular series. But वो थोड़ा सा जो glimpses दिखा from Siraj, we want to see that carry on. So just for that factor, I would want Siraj to play that, and he's had his debut, I think, in MCG also the last time he played, just like Shubman Gill. So we hope to see him carry on those golden memories from there. And apart from that, I don't see any other changes. Prasidh Krishna was mentioned by Naman. I'm not really sure whether he'll get a game in this particular series or not. The only game which I felt that he could have played was the first Test match in Perth ahead of Harshit Rana, because I felt that his bounce and his height would have been really effective in that particular wicket. But in MCG and SCG, I'm really not sure. Maybe in SCG we'll see another spinner coming into play. Maybe Washington Sundar will have a partner with Jadeja, or maybe we'll go someone else. But in MCG, I'm not expecting any other changes.
And yeah, I think Naman also goes on to ask us that in recent years, we've seen two spinners play at MCG and SCG for India. Harsh, but can we see probably, Nitish Kumar Reddy making a way for the likes of Washington Sundar? Do you see this happening, Sanjay?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was worrying after the Ashwin retirement, because when Ashwin retired, this was the biggest worry which I had. Because having Nitish Kumar Reddy in our side, especially the way that he's been performing, it has been a great thing for India. But now we are going to face that combination issue, which has always been a major problem for India, especially when we go away from home. And if we are to play two spinners, it is going to be Nitish Kumar Reddy who is going to make way for Sundar. Otherwise, there is no other option. So it is going to be harsh. But if India decides to do that, then it is going to be harsh on Nitish. But he's had a wonderful series so far, and arguably could be one of our, like, one of the top five batters in this particular tour already, because the way he's batted in the middle order. So if Sundar makes way for Nitish, it is going to be pretty harsh on him. But I would not like argue with that call, because that is what the situation demands, especially at SCG. I'm not sure whether we'll do that for MCG. Yes, we did play with two spinners back in 2020 when Ashwin and Jadeja both played, but I'm not sure we'll go the same route this time. But if that happens, then I would not really argue with that call from the management.
Fair, and our live chat is very chatty today because Anshul goes on to say that they shouldn't risk Bumrah. He's probably the best bowler in world cricket right now. For the uninitiated, Anshul is of course a big Aussie fan, so
I know that is
I mean,
why. Obviously, I think it's only fair if Bumrah is to be rested, then I think someone like a Travis Head deserves to be rested. He did face some groin injury, so Anshul, I think it's okay for Travis to rest 2 games, right? Because obviously, if you are eyeing WTC final, then he has to be rested for that particular game. So it's okay. MCG SCG match mein rest kar do. It's fine.
and yeah, I think as Indian fans, we would definitely
Yeah.
not complain on that regard. Naman says that Siraj has similar numbers
Yeah,
as Stark and Cummins in this series. I think a lot of people have just focused so much on Siraj's aggression side of things that they haven't looked at his performances. Man's actually been doing pretty well.
definitely.
So yeah. And also, Sachin, I think Anshul agrees. He says, "Okay, deal, lol," on dropping Bumrah and Travis Head. I think world cricket will definitely miss them if that happens. For those two Test matches. Akash also goes on to add that. Wait, let me just get this comment on. Yeah, drop Siraj, get Sundar in. Probably something that I think we wouldn't want to happen, but then it really depends on the situations and the conditions, right? Because he feels that the batting will be strengthened too. Naman goes on to ask that that means going
Yeah,
ahead with just
that
two
was my
front
point.
end
Yeah.
aces. Yeah, it might really make things a little complicated. Akash says that yes, we have Nitish Kumar Reddy who can bowl part time too.
It's too
Sachin,
much
let's
on
actually get.
Nitish. Actually, it's too much on Nitish to be trusted as a bowling all rounder at this point. So let him do what he's doing already with the bat, and let him actually ease his way into this particular team. And dropping Siraj, especially after knowing his record in this series so far, being having more wickets and better numbers than Cummins, for that matter. So it is going to be harsh on Siraj, but I would not want to drop him, because obviously he's still our most one of the most experienced bowler in this particular bowling lineup along with Bumrah. So we want to have that experience along with the new ball factor, which is going to be crucial, especially in MCG. So we don't want to drop Siraj in this particular match.
That is true. And I think Naman also agrees with you. He says that, the pace bowling attack would get really thin because if there are just two pacers
Yeah.
who are done with their spells, then we can have NKR and Sundar, bowling at either end, can easily be put under pressure, which may be very counterproductive for India. And I think this next comment by Akash is quite interesting. That's why I will take it up. He goes on to say that Siraj is actually bowling well, but the wickets aren't coming as they should be. Just an observation. He plays his best under Kohli's captaincy. Now, Sanchit, I think I'm sure you must have come across this reel as well, where Virat gave him a strategy to kind of dismiss Steve Smith or Travis Head. Yeah, I think both of them, and how
Yeah.
that kind of ended up working out well for India. So, do you agree with this line of thought that Siraj has, I think, historically performed well under Kohli's captaincy than say Rohit's?
I think from statistics point of view, it is very difficult to not agree with what Akash has mentioned. But from cricket point of view, it is harsh on someone like a Rohit also if we say that he's only going to perform well under Kohli. But now the fact is that if Rohit is the captain, then obviously you have to do, any player would want to have to do better for their captain and better for their team. So from Siraj's point of view, yes, he's not bowling that well to get enough wickets right now, but he did show some glimpses in the second innings where he did ball well against their top order. So that is what actually makes me more optimistic going into MCG, and that is what makes me trust him more, because obviously it is going to be very risky to go to MCG with just two frontline pacers, as Anshul rightly mentioned, and I think it's really difficult for that change to happen. But in all honesty, I think Siraj should really play.
And I'm actually very surprised that people are not attacking and going after Akash Deep because I think on comms, right? Sunil Gavaskar was mentioning how he was not very happy with the way Akash Deep was bowling, not getting
Yeah.
those wickets. He, I think, even went on a rant and explaining how, bowlers need to have great strike rates and, not look at the economy side of things. But Sanchit, again, Akash Deep continues to feature in your playing 11 for MCT, or are we looking at a change there?
I think as of now, I think I'll give him one more game, because obviously he had a torrid time in the so far, I think, but just somewhere I feel that he has that tendency of getting the ball back into the right handers, and this is where something I think which we were missing. If you look at our bowling lineup, we don't really have someone who can swing the ball apart from Bumrah, of course. Siraj doesn't really swing the ball; he relies on his seam more. So having Akash Deep in our batting lineup, he can give you those options with the new ball, and especially as the first change in this particular inning. So that is what prompts me to trust Akash Deep at least for one more test match. If it doesn't work, then obviously the next obvious change would be to get in an extra spinner for Akash Deep and add SCG where the conditions actually favors the spinner more. But for this test match, I would go with Akash Deep.
Fair enough. I think it would really be unfair to him,
Yeah.
to just drop him after one test. And Naman also adds that, Akash Deep bowled $1 million. Unfortunate to not, get wickets and actually end up contributing. But I think no one will forget the kind of batting contribution he did, hitting those sixes at will, really bailing India out of trouble. So I think that was incredibly special too. But Sanchit, again, I'll just get your thoughts on this aspect. Now, Rain obviously played a massive spoilsport in this match, and the match could have gone either ways. I mean, India could have possibly chased down that target of 275. We could have seen a draw. Anything could have happened. But to better handle situations like rain in the future, what do you think can be done? Having a reserve day, or I don't know. Like, do you have any like valuable, not valuable, like valid suggestions of what can be done in a situation of rain?
I think cricket is the only game in the world, in the only sport in the world which is facing this kind of issue with lots of stop and plays. I think if you look at the other sports in like football, you can play in the rain, you can play in the snow. Only the worst kind of weathers is going to halt that sport. And cricket already has those kind of breaks already, with drinks break, lunch break, tea break, all those kind of breaks which you have already. So somewhere I feel that cricket is the only sport which, like, it is a very sensitive line. Like, you can't really mess too much around with the rules, with obviously not hurting the feelings of the purest of the game. So I don't think anything can happen, especially in test cricket. But maybe in the shorter formats we could see what is already happening in Australia. I think one of the stadium in Melbourne already has a covered roof stadium, if I'm not wrong. Marvel Stadium, the home of Melbourne Renegades. Maybe that could be the way forward for the shorter formats, where where the games are not really too much decided on conditions like the wind condition, which I think Test cricket relies quite a lot, especially in English conditions and South African conditions for that matter. So if you implement the same in Test cricket, then that practically like destroys the entire purpose of Test cricket. You can't really rely on conditions. So somewhere I feel that it is unfortunate that rain is playing spoil sport. I think scheduling could be the way forward, because I remember that Gabba test match usually happens right at the start of the Australian summer or towards the end of the Australian summer. So this was a very weird scheduling for by Australia for Gabba test match, and I think that was ultimately the reason why this test match was washed out. So if it happened at the start of the summer, we would have seen a full day game, or towards the end of the summer, just like what happened last time when we went there, it could have been a better. But just because Australia wanted to have that dominance with their three threatening venues, they decided to pay the price. So yeah, I think scheduling could be the viable solution for this particular problem.
Yeah, and I think that's why I want to take a comment of Anshul from earlier. He went on to add that Gaba was actually a missed opportunity for both the teams. Yeah, I think probably scheduling could have solved like half of the problems, but okay, let's not cry over spilled milk. Spilled milk. We still have a lot of opportunities. It's a 5 match test series, unlike a four, and we still have two vibrant test matches left, right? So yeah, Sanchit, I mean, what are your expectations heading into that Melbourne test? I mean, we obviously want to see a great game of cricket, but then any expectations you have from both teams?
I think from India's point of view, I would want to see a better batting performance. And if we are to win the toss, obviously I would want us to bat first. And if we can put up a good score, if we can score more than 300, 350 on that traditionally good batting wicket which is provided in Melbourne on a packed Boxing Day test match. I mean, who doesn't love Boxing Day test matches? Waking up 5 in the morning for Asians at just one day after Christmas on a cold morning in, I mean, I couldn't say cold, I live in Mumbai, so for us winter is like 21, 22 degrees, but for the rest of the country, I think waking up on a cold winter morning, watching a packed Australian stadium like MCG light up and watching India play Australia, I think that is a sight which not anyone would of us would agree that it is the worst side. So it is one of the beautiful side in the world. So to have that factor play in, and if India bats well on day one, then I think all the problems would be solved. So I want India to actually focus more on their batting. Similarly for Australia, from Australia's point of view, their weakness is their batting. If someone could step up, just like how Steve Smith stepped up with Travis Head, if one of their top order players, maybe Usman Khawaja, who is batting on thin ice at the moment, if he could turn up and score a big knock, then that could really help Australia quite a lot. So whoever bats well in this particular test match and even in SCG, I think takes the series. I'm not sure about the conditions in Sydney at the moment. We usually see a rain affected match in Sydney. So considering that, if we are to assume that the Sydney test match goes into a draw, just like how it happens traditionally, maybe the MCG test match could decide this particular series and maybe even the WTC final.
Yeah, as validated by Anshul in comments, he says again, yes, Anshul, we see you. Quite brave and ambitious of you to expect that Sydney will yield a result. Fair call. I mean, we were
I
not
think
looking
India
that far.
haven't, yeah, I think because of the age, India haven't lost a game in Sydney since 2011, where we were whitewashed. And we also haven't won a game in Sydney since 1980s, if I'm not wrong. So I'm not sure. It's a mixed feeling for India. But we almost won a game back in 2018, where we actually had Australia follow on after almost 20 years at home. And if Reigns wouldn't have played spoil sport, we could have won that test match. But it's a different day. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I hope that we see a result in Sydney at least, because another draw would actually really be frustrating for the team who is trailing by the time Sydney comes. So hopefully it's not India. If it's India, then I would obviously love a rain affected match. I think Anshul would disagree with me on this.
One time we want weather to,
Yeah.
be in our favor. Naman says the way that these teams have been batting, we can easily
Definitely,
expect
yeah.
40 wickets to fall, record also being broken. So no surprises on that front. He also goes on to add that another BGT might end in 2-1. Anshul, of course, had to add that he wouldn't mind winning it 2-1. Of course, the Aussie fan in him kind of coming through. But yeah, Sanchit, almost as we reach the end of our discussion, do you have any last and final thoughts? I mean, you shared a lot of interesting insights through the course of our discussion. I mean, I love the point where you spoke about, us Indian fans being patient, right? Because right now the team is going through a transition phase, and it's important for us to, not get ahead of ourselves and everything. But any last and final thoughts from you?
I think the only way to sum up the entire conversation which we had so far, and as we mentioned, that this BGT series has a lot on the line, and we could potentially see a lot of careers ending by the end of the series. Maybe not just from India, but maybe even from Australia. If, let's say, worst case scenario, if Usman doesn't do well, maybe we could see the last of Usman Khawaja in this particular format, with the Ashes just around the corner for them next year. So I want my honest plea to all the cricket fans right now is to just enjoy these next two test matches, because not often you see two top quality teams play this particular format, especially in a five test match series. I mean, when was the last time we have seen a five test match series being so closely competed? I mean, it has been ages. The last time a five test match series happened was the Ashes, where I think Australia blew a 2-0 lead to actually draw that series 2-all, and they could have actually lost if the one of the game which hadn't rained in that particular series. But being 1-1 at the midway of the series, it rarely happens. So my plea to all the fans, not just from India but also from Australia, is to just enjoy whatever happens in the next 10 days of cricket, and whoever wins, it is going to be a big series result for them going into the next 1 year, and could potentially be a big series result for the seniors also, who are fighting for their place in this particular team. So whatever happens is going to be an exciting 10 days of cricket, and we hope to see wonderful cricket, and hopefully both the batting lineups actually step up and we see a wonderful test match in MCG and also in SCG.
And Sanchit, seemingly this is not goodbye because our chat box is, asking us a lot of questions. So let's probably take a few more.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, I did want to ask you this question as well. Naman, perfectly asked us this. Could Cummins have made the boldest move and declared the second innings altogether? I mean, we did talk about the declaration being a little premature, and you said, it was probably a well calculated move considering, all the conditions and everything. But Sanchit, did you also consider this possibility of Australia doing the absolute left field choice thing and doing this?
No, I honestly didn't expect this, because obviously they were a bowler down with Hazelwood not featuring there. So we consider Cummins as one of the most boldest captain, but even he wouldn't have dared to do that, especially playing a bowler shot in that particular test match. So if we gave India a target of, I think we trailed by 180 or 190 in 50, 60 overs, India would have went for it and maybe even chased that, for that matter, if the game happened on day 5. So I don't think Cummins would have done that, especially knowing that they are a bowler short and already their bowlers are quite exhausted by the time they were batting. So I don't think that would have happened.
Yeah, and Naman also asked us, although this is midway through the series, Sanchit, your players to watch out from either teams. I think he means it like for the next test match and for the rest of the series as well.
I think the obvious answer, obviously, Bumrah and Travis Head from both the teams. But if I have to speak X Factor players, I think from India's point of view, somewhere I feel that it is going to be Yashasvi Jaiswal. I think he is going to have a turnaround in this series going into MCG. Uh, the little correction which I saw in his technique in the second innings, I think that could be the decisive factor for him. If he survives that new ball phase from Mitchell Stark and Scott Boland, I think he's going to score big runs, just like how he did against in Perth. I think there is a stat that Yashasvi Jaiswal has not scored a single score below 150 whenever he crosses 100. Whenever he scores 100, he scores more than 150 runs. I think that is a stat. If correct me if I'm wrong, whoever is watching on the stream. So if that happens, we have seen that SSV Jaiswal, if he digs in deep, he's going to score big runs, which could be a decisive factor for India. So he's going to be my X factor from India's point of view, and from Australia's point of view, I think. It's going to be Steve Smith. I think he's had a great comeback in the last test match, scoring a big 100 in at Gabba and coming into MCG, which he loves to play. And his SCG also, his home ground, practically both these venues actually play into his favor. So he's going to have a hell of a run in these particular two test matches.
Yeah, and Rohan goes on to confirm your stat about Yashasvi Jaiswal being right. Man has that tendency to go for those daddy hundreds, and think as Indian fans, we would be hoping he can sort of get that. Anshul obviously channeling his inner Siraj. I am only believe in Jassi Bhai because game changer player only he is. Jasprit Bumrah, of course. Akash goes on to ask us also, don't you guys think that the Indian pace attack is solely reliant on Bumrah alone, be it any session of play? Ashwin and Jadeja made sure this weak link doesn't, hamper India's overall performance. But yeah, Akash, we did talk about this a little earlier in our stream as well. And we raved about Bumrah, but we also acknowledged that a lot of the heavy lifting has been, you know, his workload. So hopefully we have the other bowlers step in as well. And I think Anshul did mention that there's a thin line between being bold and stupid as the fast bowlers. This was, I think, in line of us discussing, should Australia have overall just declared the second innings, which probably would not have been the best possible move. Naman saying 60 overs of hell, sure. And Akash asking us, last point, how about Josh Inglis and Khwaja and Sam Constance and Mitch Marsh as well? So wait, in place of so he's
Okay,
asking
I think he
if this
means
is
that
possible.
replacing.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I think Mitchell Marsh, I think he could be one of their X factors. He has not had a good time so far in this particular series, but knowing the way that both the teams are playing and both the teams are not surviving the new ball phase quite often, so quick runs are going to be the crucial form of runs in this particular series. So Mitch Marsh, if he can get his groove, I think he is going to be one of the biggest threat for India, especially coming down the order if he continues to do that. But I'm not really sure about Josh English. I think he's a quite I think he was regarded as one of the replacement for at the top of the order before I think McSweeney decided to come in, but McSweeney was ahead on the pecking order. But dropping Khawaja now would be very difficult. I think they are going to give him one more game, and he is going to make most of it, knowing what is on the line for him. So if he fails, then maybe we could see that particular change in SCG. But I don't see that happening for MCG.
Fair enough. And I'm actually laughing at this comment by Anshul. On that point, I actually got a question. What's Daddy and Mommy 100? I have no idea. I've just heard commentators and
Same, yeah.
broadcasters use it. So I don't know what is the qualification criteria for that. But it's an interesting one. I think finding the etymology of this word is going to be the next task, I think, for Nev in the back foot and Sanchit. Akash says, apologies for tuning in late. No worries, Akash. You can always, scroll back and see the rest of our stream as well. Sanchit brought in some really lovely points. And yeah, guys, I think that pretty much does conclude our discussion. Thank you so much for being such a lovely, audience, spectators, whatever you'd like to call yourselves, because we really had fun in this chat. I think Sanchit can confirm that. And you guys, really helped us keep this stream going. So yeah, Never in the Backfield is just, I don't know how many subscribers away from 500, but let's just get there. And the plan is to, do a lot of these live shows with passionate cricket fans. So, keep supporting Never in the Backfield. Check out Sanchit on Instagram if you haven't already. And he does a lot of fun stuff. He goes to a lot of matches and, has that sort of an experience. Make sure to check out his content as well. That's all, guys, from us for now. Thank you so much. Cheers. Take care.